Welcome back, listeners, to another deep dive. And today's a big one.
Oh, yeah, definitely a big one.
We're going into 2666 by Roberto Bolaño. It's,
The monster book.
yeah, almost 900 pages.
A lot of people say it's challenging.
A lot of people love it, too, though.
Critically acclaimed, for sure, it is.
So we're going to try to figure out why.
That's the goal.
We've got your notes, reviews, and some of your personal thoughts about it.
Right here.
And we're going to sort of unravel the mysteries of 2666 just enough.
Just enough to pique your interest, yeah.
Without totally spoiling it.
Yeah, think of it as a, like a treasure map.
Oh, I like that.
We'll show you the landmarks, but not the treasure itself.
That's great. Okay, so 2666 centers around this German author,
Benno von Archimboldi.
Benno von Archimboldi, and he's a recluse.
Total recluse.
Publishes under a pseudonym. Nobody knows anything about him.
He's like a literary Bigfoot.
Ooh.
Some people swear they've seen him, you know, like his footprints.
Right, analyze the...
Yeah. Analyze the evidence.
But the man himself,
A complete phantom.
nobody can find him. And this is where our first group of characters comes in.
The critics.
They're obsessed with him.
Obsessed.
All over Europe, they're traveling around, going to conferences.
Every little clue, you
like,
know.
trying to figure him out.
Absolutely.
Like a puzzle.
And each critic brings something different to the table.
That's what's so interesting.
Yeah. You've got Pelletier, he's the Frenchman, he's really into the prose. Marini, the Italian, he's all about the philosophical stuff.
Right.
Espinosa, from Spain, sees Archimboldi as, like, this political rebel.
Interesting.
And then you've got Liz Norton,
The only woman.
the only woman, and she's a little more skeptical.
More grounded, I guess.
Yeah, grounded, maybe suspicious.
Right. Like, is this guy for real?
Yeah, exactly.
So it makes you wonder, what is it about this guy?
What is it about Archimboldi that makes them so crazy?
Right. Is it the writing itself?
Or are they just projecting, you know?
Projecting their own stuff onto him.
Yeah, their own desires, their anxieties.
He's like a blank slate. They can put anything on him.
Exactly.
That's a good point. Like, they're all searching for something in his books.
I think they are, yeah.
But what is it?
Could it be the same thing that, you know, draws all of us to art in some way?
I think so, yeah.
That desire for connection, meaning something bigger than ourselves.
That's the kind of stuff Bolaño is exploring.
And he's really good at it. But, you know, these critics, they're just one piece of the puzzle.
Right. 2666 is 5 parts.
5 parts.
Each one brings something totally new.
It's like this puzzle box, right? You think you're figuring it out, and then, boom, something else.
He throws another curveball.
Another curveball, exactly.
And that's especially true when we shift to Santa Teresa,
The city, yeah.
on the U.S.-Mexico border.
It's the dark heart of the book.
It really is.
Yeah.
Full of violence, poverty. You can feel the tension.
It's really unsettling, you know?
And then the murders start.
Young women,
Unsolved.
each one more gruesome than the last.
It gets really intense.
Bolaño doesn't hold back.
He puts you right there in Santa Teresa.
Right there, yeah. In the grit.
But he also shows the humanity.
He does.
People trying to live their lives.
And it's all the fear.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, Oscar Fate, the journalist,
Trying to expose the truth.
even though it's dangerous.
Very dangerous.
And Rosa Amalfitano,
A young woman.
caught in some bad relationships.
Yeah, it's tough.
So, Bolaño is showing us that even in the darkest places, life goes on
It does.
with all its
And
complexities.
all the contradictions.
And these individual stories, they become even more powerful, you know,
They do, yeah.
because of the backdrop of the killings.
There's this tension.
Like, nobody's really safe.
Nobody is safe. And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm ready.
Remember those critics?
Obsessed with Archimboldi.
They end up in Santa Teresa.
No way.
Yes.
What are they doing there?
There's a rumor that Archimboldi, he might have spent time in the city.
Oh, wow.
So they go there,
These academics.
drawn into this heart of darkness.
Like moths to a flame.
A very dangerous flame.
Searching for one mystery and maybe finding something much worse.
Could be. And you know what else?
Yeah.
The novel itself is like a maze.
Oh, how
It jumps around, different times, perspectives.
Right, different storyline.
Like it's mirroring the reality of Santa Teresa.
That fragmented reality.
Exactly. And Bolaño doesn't give you the answers, you know?
He makes you work for it.
He does. He makes you work for it.
He uses this style to create this unease.
Like things are just a little off.
Just a little bit wrong.
Exactly. And that's why it's so captivating, 2666.
You have to think.
You have to think. It draws you in.
It's a challenge.
He's saying, here are the pieces, figure it out.
You try to make sense of the chaos.
Exactly, and that's part of the brilliance.
It makes you work.
It asks so much of the reader. You gotta pay attention, make connections.
Question your assumptions.
Yeah, about art, about violence, even about reality.
That's a lot to take in. So we have all these seemingly different threads.
Yeah.
You've got a phantom author,
Right.
a city full of violence, and these obsessed critics
On a collision course.
with who knows what.
With the unknown. So where do we go from here? All right, so let's try to unpack some of these connections, swirling around Archimboldi and these murders in Santa Teresa. One thing that really jumps out is,
Yeah, the critics get in there, right?
their arrival seems to coincide with like an escalation of the murders.
It's creepy.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, is it just a coincidence?
Or is their presence like stirring something up?
Right, like they're awakening something dark in the city.
And speaking of dark, we got to talk about Klaus Haas,
Oh yeah, Haas.
this German guy in prison in Santa Teresa.
You had some interesting theories about him.
Yeah. In my notes, some people think he could be connected to both Archimboldi and the crimes.
Haas is a total enigma, like a walking question mark.
Bolaño gives us these little hints about his past, right?
She does, like little breadcrumbs, suggesting a link to Archimboldi, but never really confirming anything.
It's like he wants us to make the connection ourselves.
He's daring us to connect the dots, figure out who Haas is and what his role is in this whole thing.
And that's what he does a lot, doesn't he?
Bolaño. Oh, absolutely. He plays with our expectations.
He's always challenging us to figure things out on our own.
He gives us just enough to make us curious, but never enough to fully satisfy us.
And that's why 2666 sticks with you, I think.
It does, yeah. Long after you've finished it, you're still thinking about it.
He's trying to work it all out.
Debating the connections, the meaning.
Like he's saying, here are the tools, now go build something.
Exactly. He wants us to be active participants in the story, not just passive readers.
He wants us to grapple with the themes,
Yeah, confront the ambiguity, the not knowing.
which can be uncomfortable.
It can be, but it's also pretty profound.
So back to those connections for a second.
Okay, yeah.
In your notes, you mentioned that the critics actually meet people who have been directly affected by the violence in Santa Teresa.
Right, it suggests their little quest might be more connected to the city's dark side than they realize.
More entangled.
Yeah, exactly. There are these moments where they cross paths with people like Oscar Fate, for example.
The journalist.
Right, the one risking his life to uncover the truth about the murders.
Brave guy.
He is. And it's interesting, there's this parallel between his pursuit of truth and the critic's pursuit of literary meaning.
Like they're both trying to solve a mystery.
Exactly, just in different ways.
And Bolaño might be saying that those two pursuits, they're actually driven by a similar desire.
To uncover something hidden, something beneath the surface.
That's a really cool idea.
And then you have Rosa Amalfitano.
Right, her story is so sad.
It is, it really highlights how vulnerable women are in Santa Teresa.
She gets involved with this dangerous guy.
Connected to the criminal underworld.
And through her, Bolaño really shows us the human cost of all this violence.
It's not just an abstract concept. These are real people whose lives are being destroyed.
And it's even more heartbreaking because the novel hints that the murders might be connected to the city's growth,
Yeah, the industrial boom.
Like Santa Teresa is a microcosm of the whole world.
Where progress and exploitation go hand in hand.
It's like the city itself is a character.
A very dark character.
Representing this idea that wealth and power always come at a cost.
A human cost.
And that makes 2666 feel so relevant, even today.
It does. It speaks to these huge issues. Globalization, exploitation, greed.
Things that are still happening.
Absolutely.
Okay, we've talked about all these potential connections, but what about Archimboldi himself?
Right, the big question.
Is he just a symbol?
A symbol of our search for meaning.
Or is he somehow actually involved in what's happening in Santa Teresa?
That's the million-dollar question, and Bolaño leaves it up to us.
He's so frustrating sometimes.
I know, right? He plants these seeds of doubt, these hints, but never gives us a straight answer.
I like a good mystery, but I also like some resolution.
I get it. But I think Bolaño is intentionally avoiding easy answers. He's more interested in the process of questioning.
Exploring the ambiguity.
Exactly. He's not trying to give us a neat and tidy ending.
It's like he's saying, don't just accept what you're given, think for yourself.
Challenge your assumptions, come to your own conclusions.
Which can be hard.
It can be, but it's also what makes 2666 so rewarding. It's not a passive experience. It requires you to engage with the material.
Wrestle with these complex ideas.
Confront the uncomfortable realities.
It's an experience, not just a book.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that even beyond the murders, the novel also explores Archimboldi's writing itself.
The themes of violence, history, the darkness of humanity.
And those critics, their obsession with him, it mirrors our own desire for meaning, for connection through art.
Like, they're searching for something in his words that can help them make sense of the world.
It's fascinating, right? Their obsession with Archimboldi becomes this metaphor for our own relationship with art.
How we look for comfort, understanding, even escape in the stories we consume.
And 2666, with its sprawling narrative, its fragmented structure, it forces us to confront our own role in that process.
It makes us active participants, not just passive consumers.
Absolutely. It's not a book you can just sit back and absorb. It demands your attention, your engagement.
It makes you uncomfortable.
It does. But it also makes you think.
So, as we move into the final part of our deep dive, I have to ask, is there any hope in this world that Bolaño has created?
It's bleak, that's for sure. But that's the question we'll explore next. We'll look at the ending, its impact, and the questions it leaves us with.
Because even in the darkest stories, there's often a glimmer of light.
There is. We just have to find it.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time with Roberto Bolaño's 2666.
We have.
It's a lot to unpack.
Intricate layers, yeah.
Mysteries, big questions.
And it's pretty unsettling, too.
Definitely unsettling. From that mysterious author, Archimboldi?
To the horrors of Santa Teresa.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride.
It has. We've looked at all these potential connections, the unanswered questions.
The themes of art, violence, the whole human condition.
Yeah. But one question keeps coming back to me.
What's that?
Does 26666 offer any hope?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because it's a pretty dark book.
It is.
I mean, the violence, especially against women,
It's relentless.
brutal. And it's depicted so unflinchingly.
Bolaño doesn't shy away from it, that's for sure.
Santa Teresa feels like this,
Breeding ground for evil, yeah.
where innocence is just destroyed.
Over and over again.
But I don't know, maybe there's some glimmers of hope in there.
Maybe. Think about those critics.
Okay, yeah.
They're obsessed with Archimboldi, right?
Fault, almost.
But their dedication, even if it's misguided, it shows something about us, I think.
What do you mean?
That need to connect, to find meaning.
To find something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're searching for answers in his work.
To those big questions, what's the meaning of life? How to deal with suffering?
Where do we fit in?
Exactly.
And maybe that's the point, right?
Maybe the search itself is what matters.
More than actually finding the answers.
Bolaño doesn't give us easy answers. He wants us to keep asking those questions.
Keep searching for meaning, even when it feels like there isn't any.
Even when the world seems determined to crush us.
That's powerful.
It is. And 2666 also reminds us that just remembering these things, bearing witness,
To the atrocities.
it's a form of resistance.
How so?
By not letting these stories be forgotten, by acknowledging the suffering, the injustice.
Shining a light on the darkness.
Exactly. We honor the victims, and we challenge the systems that allow this to happen.
And in that, maybe there's a little bit of hope for a better future.
A more just future, a more compassionate future.
So you're saying hope isn't about finding answers, but about our willingness to face the darkness.
To engage with those difficult truths, to keep fighting for something better.
It's a heavy responsibility.
It is, but we can't ignore it.
Okay, before we wrap up, there's something I wanted to ask you.
Sure, what is it?
Those images of the desert that keep popping up in the novel,
The vast, empty desert.
what do you think Bolaño is doing with that imagery?
Well, it's definitely a powerful image.
When I first read about it, I thought of it as this representation of the unknown.
The liminal space.
Yeah, where boundaries disappear and identities get lost.
It's a place of extremes,
Intense light, intense darkness,
Beauty and brutality.
side by side.
I think you're onto something. The desert is a metaphor for the internal struggles of the character.
Their journeys through doubt, despair,
And that yearning for something solid, something to hold on to.
in a world that feels meaningless.
Exactly. It's like the externalization of their internal landscapes.
And like those characters wandering through the desert, we as readers are left to find our own way,
To piece together those fragments of meaning.
create our own maps.
And that's what makes 2666 stay with you.
Long after you've finished reading it,
It makes you rethink the world.
question your own assumptions.
Keep searching for meaning even when it feels impossible.
It's a powerful book.
It is. It's a book that needs to be talked about, debated,
Wrestled with.
and in that struggle, maybe we find a little bit of hope.
Well, there you have it, listeners. Our deep dive into 2666 has come to an end.
But the conversation, the exploration, it's just beginning.
We encourage you to check out this incredible book
And embark on your own journey through its pages.
and ultimately transform.
As you make your way through this literary labyrinth, keep your minds curious.
Question everything and embrace the ambiguity.
Until next time, happy reading.
Happy reading, everyone!